So, folks, welcome to Digital Drams. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who've joined us before, you kind of know the shtick. We'd love to hear your comments and your tasting notes to get loads of feedback in, and we'll be giving a 15% discount out on these whiskies at the end. So we do want you engaging with the chat. For those of you joining us for the first time, and there's possibly a few people on here who definitely are, or at least maybe hopefully watching the recording out there. Hello, if you're not live. This is my name's Luke. I'm the W Club manager, and we do want these tastings to be super interactive. So do get your questions, your taste notes in on every dram. I can see Vicky, Graham, Martin, Frank all saying hi there in the chat. So hi everyone. So I'm delighted to be joined. This is our second tasting with Cardrona. So this is interesting to see kind of your development and update and how you're getting on, and maybe some people on the call will have been on before. So do let us know in the chat if you were on that last tasting. I think it was the back half of 2022. Or if this is your first time trying the whiskey, we do want to let you know. So to get back to what I was saying at the start while I was waiting for people to join from the waiting room. So Isla, you're originally obviously working with Cardrona now, but you're originally from Scotland. Do you want to tell people about yourself first, and then and then maybe the lineup, the order we're going to go in today?
Absolutely. So, hi guys, I'm Isla. As I say, I'm originally a Highland girl. I'm from Aviemore. Emigrated out to New Zealand about 10 years ago when they were building Cardrona Distillery, kind of working the ski industry. But whiskey has always been a bit of a passion of mine. I like to say I did a lot of product research growing up in Scotland. Joined the team about 6 years ago. I'm coming up to my sixth anniversary. Trained under Sarah. If you had joined the tasting before, Sarah is our master distiller. So a lot of my practical knowledge comes from Sarah and Desiree, our fearless leader. And yeah, so been part of the family from when it was a much smaller distillery, when everyone was doing everything and jumping into every department. And I've had the pleasure of watching that grow over the last 6 years and become a lot bigger. We've now moved into 24-hour production, which is very, very exciting.
Oh wow. That is a big development. And in terms of the lineup, the order we want to go in tonight, we've got the Reid, the full flight, the Growing Wings, the full flight Sherry Cask, the 114, which we were discussing before we went live, the Growing Wings Solera, the full flight Solera, and the Falcon. So what order would you like to run the tasting in tonight? I assume we'll start with the vodka, will we? Or we could be really avant-garde
Going
and
to
end
be
with the vodka.
out there, end on the vodka, if that's okay. I know that sounds a bit
Oh, I was only
strange, but
joking. Perfect. Yeah. Excellent.
I do find that our vodka, sometimes we start with it, but I actually prefer to end with it. I look at it almost like a dessert. So we're actually going to start with the growing wings, Solera,
So the Growing Wings Solera to start. Yeah.
and then move immediately to flight sherry cask, the 114 Oloroso, the Falcon, and then end on the single malt, the Reid, the vodka.
Sorry, so I didn't get. So we're going the Growing Wings Solera. I'm
Growing
slow at
Solera.
the best of times, but I'm particularly slow today. The Growing Wings Solera, the full flight 114. Did you say then the Falcon?
Sorry, yeah. So the growing wing Solera, full flight Solera, the full flight 114, the Falcon, and then the Reid single malt vodka.
Marvelous, excellent. Well, I'll type that into the chat so everyone can refer to it if they're a bit confused with the running order. Um, Brilliant. So you as you were saying, so we'll get poured on the Growing Wings Solera, and then so you moved over 6 years ago, and were you already working in whiskey by then, or I know you said you did product research there, but you were you referenced that you joke up growing up in, oh my God, I've lost my ability to speak. You made the joke that growing up in Scotland was like product research for your current job, but what actually led you to take the job in the distillery? Was it something you were already engaged in, or was it just a passion, or?
Just a passion. New Zealand. I just had the. I like to joke that I talked my way into the job, but actually, I just met the team at Cardrona, and I asked Des, "How do I get a job?" And she told me to go away and study under IBD and come back, and essentially got apprenticeship here. So I'm a bit of an anomaly in the sense that I trained, a Scot came out to New Zealand to train to become a distiller. But it's a ski town, Wanaka. Wanaka is kind of our local town base. So I came out here having moved from Japan to work the ski industry, but fell in love with whiskey and had done a bit of bar work and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of my knowledge and all of my practical skills come from as I say, Sarah and Desiree, which has been incredible. Yeah, very lucky girl.
Marvelous. Well, we've got a few people on
Um,
the who've said that they were been on the tasting before, or that this was their first time joining. A couple who've tried the whiskey before weren't in the last tasting. So it looks like I've got a bit of a mix of people who kind of have a bit of a knowledge of the brand and people who are totally new to it. So I don't know if what you want to, if you want to go with either what we're nosing here in this glass, or maybe while we nose and sip that, maybe kind of what would, for someone who's brand new to the brand, what would your kind of introduction be?
Okay, no, great. So as I say, have a nose of this. With our growing wings, one thing I will say for the first three, we are looking at cask strength whiskies. So each their own. I do think it opens up. Now, first and foremost, we are a single malt distillery based in the Southern Alps of New Zealand. Beautiful fresh water, very similar composition to that of the Scottish Highlands, very, very mineral rich, sweet. Incredible environment, very dry, arid environment that we live here. Now, when I joined the team, we were going through, so essentially, the growing wings in full flight, I look at them as almost pre-releases. They were our introduction to the whiskey. When I joined the team, we were at our 3 years old. So here at Cardrona, we follow single malt law to the letter. We actually follow single malt Scottish law to the letter. We do have our own whiskey terms down here in New Zealand, but Des, she was very, very strict on following Scottish law. So our first release was just hatched, 3 years in one day, came and went. It's a Solera. So this one that you're smelling here is a combination of one sherry cask to four bourbon. So a real beautiful mix and marriage of the two. We married those flavors together in a nice big vat and bottled down from there. So this one here, our growing wings Solera, we are looking at, so we actually barrel in. So we proof our new make to 66 and we barrel in at 66. This one, in over 5 years, our Solera has gone down to 64.6. Now, I'd love to get your feedback on this, guys. For me, I find we are very smooth. We don't add any peat or smoke. As I said, we're a dry, arid environment, so there's no peat around us. So it didn't make sense for our signature flavor to be a peated one. We've gone along more of the smoother style of whiskies. I find a lot of kind of dark fruits on the nose, very sweet, very toffee-like. Be interesting. The wood
Mm.
casks, great question there, Leon. So we get our sherry. We actually age in three types of casks. Our bourbon we get from companies like Four Roses, Haven Hill, Woodford Reserve, Breckenridge, all beautiful bourbon distilleries based out in the States. Our sherry we either age in Oloroso or Pedro Jimenez casks. As we move on, and we'll talk about it as we get to the Falcon, we also age in Pinot Noir casks. So three types of casks coming in from New Zealand here. But
Right.
these are just a combination of our sherry and our bourbon.
And in terms of obviously the Solera cask, so the Solera system in sherry is about blending vintages as new ones come in. Am I right? So that there's kind of a bit of a really old sherry and a bit of a really young sherry in there. Was always my comprehension, but maybe I'm totally wrong. How does that work in terms of how this is blended or married
Um,
or?
I mean, yeah, and I mean, you're right in that sense. For us, it was more about, I mean, think of this as the initial opening to the market. So for us, it was availability of casks in the initial days. That kind of came down to uh, Des and Sarah worked really hard to pick out the right ones because we were releasing at such a young age. So she just went around and kind of tasted the ones that she thought was ready. We have an incredible aging system here in Central Otago, which is in the region that we're in here in New Zealand. We have massive swings in temperature from summer to winter and also from night to day. So we found that our barrels were actually aging at an incredible rate compared to kind of like more damp environments, as it were. We also have a really strange system whereby, depending on where it is in our barrel house, sometimes we have quite high loss of alcohol compared to water, and the other way around. So sometimes when we're pulling from casks, we're finding that it's going up to about 67% ABV. So there was a number of reasons she chose that one cask that went in, and it was all kind of to do with the flavor that was pulling out.
Hmm. No,
Yeah.
very good. The excellent. Well, they're very quiet in their tasting notes tonight. Frank has actually answered Leon's question, although a bit after you did. It's a very funny response, but the timing probably wasn't as good in terms of when Leon asked about the wood come from. He said trees. So we've got a couple people here who've tried New Zealand whiskey before. A couple people who haven't. This is £78 a dram, so it's not cheap, but it's definitely tasty. I do. I'm a big fan of cask strength whiskey. So it doesn't bother me at all. But it does have it's got a bit of a punch in there, but it's also followed quite quickly by those kind of tannins, which give it a really interesting length of finish. I think it's incredibly approachable dram. I think even at that ABV.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree, and especially for its age. And personally, and it is always a personal thing when it comes to cask strength whiskies, I do add in a touch of water. I do love to open up those oils and really get those aromas going. So if you do have a jug of water at home, as I imagine many of you do, I do advise putting in a wee bit, but each to their own, as I say. Um, my
Um,
father always said, "You buy whiskey, it's yours to drink however you damn well please." But
yeah, no,
but
exactly.
that's
Um, Totally agree. And in terms of, you mentioned the kind of the arid climate and the lack of peat. I suppose for speaking to someone like here who's never been to the southern hemisphere, the kind of the popular image of New Zealand is that it's actually not a million miles away from what parts of Scotland are like in terms of, I suppose, hills and sheep really. So in terms of climate, how does it compare in terms of aging of whiskey and that side of things?
so. If you have tried other New Zealand whiskies before, especially like Pocono, Thompson, all the rest, what makes New Zealand really, really incredible is what I would say microclimates. And we're an incredibly big country with an incredibly little amount of people. And if you go from the north of the North Island to the south of the South Island, you're going from tropical regions to the south of the South being very, very damp. Where we are in the Southern Alps, as they're called. So we're right in the center of the Southern Alps. And we have this incredible microclimate. So in Wanaka, you can actually look out across the lake and you can see the rain coming in from the west coast and it just stops. It's just a wall of it, just right there. So we're in this really, really dry, so we're a Pinot Noir growing region to give you an idea of the type, like Pinot Noir, conifers, things like that just thrive in this environment because
Hmm.
it has real dry spells, real warm, beautiful sunshine. We get up to about early 30 kind of degrees here, centigrade in the height of summer, and it can stay that way for a long time. So, but we do get like really wet springs as well. So
Hmm.
it's an interesting environment. And then snow just comes in the winter.
Yeah, no, I mean
Um,
it sounds lovely. The I did actually look up in the past pictures of the mountain. I think maybe we'll discuss it 'cause I think the red wine casks are linked with a vineyard or something there. I don't know. I don't want to give away it, but some of the pictures are stunning of the region. I definitely recommend anyone. I suppose most of you are near a laptop or phone at the moment. Do give a Google to location. It's stunning. Um, so maybe next time, maybe in 2 years' time, we'll do another tasting with you, and I'll come and visit you. We can do it live on site.
Absolutely. I always say get down here. We'll show you around. We've got great tours. We've got an amazing restaurant and chef. So yeah, we've got the whole shebang here. So yeah, if anyone's ever coming down, please just always note where you've kind of heard from us, and we'll show you a good time. We've got a great team here. Absolutely. I'm just looking at some of the
Perfect. I was
tasting
just
notes.
going to say that, yeah, there's some great taste notes coming in now in the last 2 minutes. So David said very fruity, fresh, carries the ABV very well. Bob says the mix of bourbon and sherry works very well. Bit of spice lingering, dash of water rounds it off. And I've actually added a dash of water as well, Bob. I totally agree. It really does. open it up. It allows you to kind of to peel back the layers a bit more. David says lots of toffee and ripe bananas on the nose, but lots of barrel spice on the palate. Alice said, excuse me, Alice said, I'm struggling to put a note to it. I first get apples, then a hint of lemon on the nose, but it's changing all the time for me. Just got over a cold, so maybe still affecting me. The lemons could be from the Lemsip, Alistair. The Dom said there's a lovely vanilla fudge on the nose with fragrant sweetness, Victoria plums, creamy mouthfeel, but honey sweetness, nuttiness, principally walnuts, ripe fruit, forest fruit, baking spices, a long warming finish with ripe pears and ginger. Isla, Dom in recent weeks has become a bit of a legend in the tasting notes front. I'm not convinced he's not just
I'm
ChatGPT.
really impressed.
It's a really good tasting note again there. Water just finished this. Oh,
Yes. That's pretty
sorry.
much what this is. Like our fearless leader, she's the beauty brains and brawn behind this whole operation. That is just you kind of hit the nail on the head with that one, Don. Well done. And I really do like I realize you're suffering from a cold, Alistair, but the fact that it changes for me, the apples, that comes through quite a lot for me, especially at the beginning. And then I move on to those kind of deeper notes and definitely kind of sometimes get almost like a banoffee pie coming off it as well every now and then. So and caramel, like very, very sweet. But not very sweet actually. That's the wrong way of saying it. But we do have those sweet notes, those real for me I always think of it as a dessert whiskey. It
Mm.
just always goes down after dinner.
Definitely. We've got Whiskey Slayer in the chat there as well, who's got COVID. So I always think virtual tastings are the best way to spend your isolation if that's what you're doing, Whiskey Slayer. We've got water really unlocks the nose, can't compete with Dom, so won't even try. Palate with water, sharp zesty, followed by sweetness, slightly bitter on the tongue. Finish vines like wine. So grapes have come up there as well, from Andy. So wines and grapes coming through as well. So that's interesting. Is that a common one you get, Isla?
Um, Once we move on to the Pinot Noir, yes, absolutely. Not all the time, but I mean, this is why I love these kind of tastings and noses because everyone's palate's individual, right? And often that palate's accessed by memory. So uh, I always find it really interesting when we get new ones, and I love when people kind of bring in new flavors that and the nuances of the whiskey. So grapes actually pretty new for me, but I love that. Like I always think no one's really that wrong when it comes to flavor.
No,
Everyone's just
exactly. Yeah. It's a bit
yeah.
like, having enjoying your whiskey your own damn way, or to paraphrase your father. So yeah, the if you're enjoying it, then that's the main thing.
And that's the and for me and a lot of it is about where I taste it in the mouth. That's where I kind of access whether I enjoy a whiskey or not. And if I
Hmm,
can feel it everywhere, then I love it. It's full of flavor. Um
definitely. Although I must say there is a one of the great joys of drinking whiskey is when you're enjoying it and you're kind of picking out the flavors, and then someone mentions something that you didn't think you were getting at all, and then suddenly it explodes in your mouth. I think there is a good, these sharing these tasting notes is thoroughly enjoyable. I mean, to dismiss, be dismissive of that experience by suggesting, sure, it's all what we taste. But anyway, yeah, marvelous. Well, we come on to the full flight Solera.
it's the same principle. So it's a great one to move on to simply because the growing wings, as I say, that kind of came and went. In fact, we are entirely sold out at this distillery of growing wings ourselves. The only stuff that's left in New Zealand is a few here and there in kind of bottle shops. So the UK, you still get to try this marvelous whiskey, which a lot of people who come and visit here that it's been and gone. So something quite special and unique. The full flight is the exact same principle. So have a nose. It's just been aged 2 years more. So this is a really good example to move on from because you can see what 2 years does to the exact same whiskey, if you know what I mean. So it really gauges how well our aging is kind of our maturation is happening here on site.
Hmm. Well, I mean, the
Yeah.
nose is totally different for me anyway. It's yeah, you would think it was any relation.
So, and then we've moved down, we've lost a bit of our ABV to the Angel share. We're at 62.8, still a cask strength whiskey. So, by all means, neat and then open it up with a little bit of water.
There's definitely a lot more sort of orchard fruits coming through on the nose, and to an extent on the palate for that as well. Um, some of those kind of sweeter notes as well have kind of sort of a bit more burnt sugars and brown sugars than in the first one. Yeah, really interested. Be keen to hear what people think. Maybe while people are kind of digesting that, we can maybe jump back into so you mentioned the cask breakup of this one was one sherry and five bourbon of the first one, was it? Oh,
So, yeah, so
sorry.
one 500 liter sherry butt to four 200 liter bourbon barrels. So that's kind of the ratio.
And they're both exactly the same in that regard. It's just yeah.
Yeah,
Um
this.
I, sorry. I don't know if that's my end or your end, but I lost you there.
Oh no, yeah, no, same ratio into our Solera vat, married together. Let those flavors sit and marry, and then we bottle down from there. And this is we did our last bottling of the full flight a few months back. So what's left in the world is what's left in the world, never to be released again, which is quite exciting.
There you go. Do you hear that, folks? Grab one while you still can. The and in terms of your distillation process, I see there's already some taste notes coming in there, but I'd be interested to hear. Obviously, you said you mentioned it based off the kind of the Scottish style, and obviously, they're single malts. But what in terms of fermentation times, kind of still size, how do you run from that in terms of your scale of output? And
Great question. So yeah, we do, and this is going by what we do now. We have our barley is grown here in Canterbury, so it's just the next region up. We've been mainly using Laureate. In the kind of earlier days, we actually brought in from the UK because there was no malting houses available to us here. There is now, so we grow our barley here in Canterbury. Fermentation wise, we do a 72-hour fermentation. So we start pulling. So when we're running the whiskey stills, our girls, which are handmade Forsyth whiskey stills, beautiful feats of engineering, we turn 1.2 tons of barley into 6,000 litres of our wash. And we start pulling at around 72 hours. And then our wash still is only 2,000 litres. So in terms of kind of size, kind of, like that's half the size of the smallest still in Scotland. So one run of one mash will last 24 hours. So we do 3 runs of our whiskey stills a day. Double distillation. And yeah, so we roughly in a 24-hour period get about 600 litres or 3 bourbon barrels worth of new make spirits. So even though we're running 24 hours a day, it's very slow, handcrafted. We're still making our cuts by hand. We're
hmm.
doing and tasting. One of the beauties of working here in New Zealand is our tax laws allow us to open up our spirit safe and taste and all the rest. So we don't have the keys like a lot of Scottish distillers have, which is really fun. So we're very, from grain to barrel, it's a very hands-on process.
So if you don't need to lock up the fence receiver, do you is it still called a spirit safe, or surely it's something else? Surely it's a kind of a spirits kind of honesty box or something, you know?
It's come from Forsyth. It's still uh, it has the potential to be locked up. We just don't need to.
Perfect. A bit like myself, I've got the potential to be locked up. But the we've got some great taste notes coming in there.
Yeah.
So David says Battenberg cake with marzipan and fruity jammy notes. That is a fantastic tasting note, David. I totally agree. It does have that kind of those kind of pastry strudel kind of flavors in there as well. Um, that doesn't have the heat I'd normally get from a 60+% ABV, says Alistair. Chris says, I agree, very drinkable strength, amazing creamy toffee notes. We've got agree with the Battenberg note. The Then we've got Bob has said another very quaffable cask strength dram. The extra 2 years have added further depth and richness. Benefits again from a drop of water for me. Nose is slightly phenolic, followed by a sort of pear drop boiled sweet smell. Then Dama said the full flight is very different on the nose, but burnt treacle toffee, saurine, meatloaf, and touch of apple. Superb. The mouthfeel is creamy, but tannins are more drying. There's a dark chocolate orange flesh, and I can't see this the rest of the thing on my screen. And when I scroll too far. So I'm butchering your lovely soliloquy here. Dark chocolate, orange flesh, and raisins, reminiscent of old Jamaican chocolate. The dark chocolate lingers into the finish and is complemented by cedarwood, nutmeg, blackcurrant sweetness. A very rewarding dram. Excellent tasting note again, Dom. Dave says some of the fruity flavor is gone, some darker notes, molasses, and a touch of coca. Less oak, more dark chocolate, blackcurrant, less heat for me, says Whisky. I totally agree. There is definitely those kind of those. There's a lovely sort of marshmallow vanilla fruitiness on the finish. There is those kind of pastry notes. There's kind of it's and earlier on, as I said, it's kind of a bit more of those burnt sugars as well. So it is a very very different dram I like compared to the first one.
And it's so interesting that we've had that just in 2 years. And I really love somebody wrote pear drops, which is always a really interesting one for me because I find that especially people from the UK
Mm.
tend to get that. You see a taste and smell that's familiar. Bear that in mind when we move down the line and we move on to our vodka, because I would like to come back to the kind of pear drops notes that are in there. Um, for me, it's always kind of toffee, dark fruits, and we get a lot of that. The Battenberg, I think, is kind of again perfect way. But really interesting that somebody wrote about the 60% ABV and it doesn't hit as much as you would, because we get that a lot. We get that a lot. Like people when they see, especially if they're not seasoned whiskey drinkers, they can see the ABV and get a bit of a fright about it. But it's amazing how many people just kind of reiterate how smooth it is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So this one is slightly more expensive than the first one, so it's £86 on our website. But I think it's definitely worth that kind of, you get the kind of extra time put in terms of the maturity, the roundness, the what it has, how it has developed. I'm gonna try it with a bit of water myself, seeing as I did that with the first one, just to kind of compare the two properly. Uh, yeah, no, it's very interesting. I suppose we touched on this off air, but you said that, to paraphrase what you said, so I don't want to sound like I'm putting words in your mouth, but you said that these are effectively the kind of early access beta release, pre-sale tickets to your favorite music festival, in terms of the volume output and the size of the bottles.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like all new distilleries, when we first started releasing the whiskey, we were excited about it and wanted other people to be excited about it. We didn't know where we were headed, the vastness or the scale at which we become. We had hopes and dreams of it, but so with the initial release, it came about with just pure excitement to try our whiskey and to introduce ourselves to the market. And we think we're producing a very good standard and high class standard of whiskey. So then that just formed into kind of that beautiful like movement of just hatched growing wines full flight, knowing that we were releasing in smaller bottles because we have that higher strength ABV as well. We're not adding water or anything like that. And because it was going to be an introduction and it was never going to be around forever.
Hmm.
We've had feedback over the years about how we want them, people want them in larger bottles. It was always going to go that way, but we've taken that feedback on and we will be producing primarily in larger bottles from the future onwards.
Will you ever
So
do
when
like a McDonald's, small, medium, large,
that I would love to answer that question, but that's Des's yeah, I don't know the answer to that, is my honest opinion. Um, that's always like Des has this incredible brain where she's always thinking 20 years ahead, and I'm fighting to keep up. So I don't know the answer to that one just yet.
I often think about the world in 20 years. It's why I drink so much. Um, so with the discount, everyone will be getting at the end of the tasting. This drops down to £73.10. Obviously, folks, you're earning 292 points, W Club reward points for that to go against your next purchase. Bob says, loving these so far, but whilst these are small batch, high strength whiskies from NZ, just wondered about the entry point into the UK market for sales, as the price point is bound to be a bit of a barrier at 35 CL, especially given the downturn in 2024 for whiskey sales. Are tariffs an issue? I suppose what Bob is saying in terms of, the challenges in terms of, your output, your scale, and exporting to literally the other side of the planet.
Yes, yeah, and New Zealand, we have, and Australia, we have the highest tax excise rates in the world, which is always a barrier as well. But we, in terms of that, that's you're not alone in that. We were at the London Whisky Show and found a lot of feedback similar. That's now been put to sales and marketing and all the rest. I think in terms, one thing that to acknowledge is the fact that we are creating at such a handcrafted level. So in terms of we don't, like there are certain companies that everything's cut by computer and all the rest, and you only have one distiller on site. We have 8 distillers, all handcrafting, hand bottling, hand labeling, everything from start to finish is done by hand. We don't have any giant machines or anything doing the work for us. And so our price point often mirrors the love, for lack of a better word, that's gone into each and every single one of these bottles.
No, no, perfect. I mean, I like it is in terms of being part of that journey and part of that, from in terms of your early releases, the effort that goes in. And that's why these tastings are important as well, because if you enjoy the liquid I think most people on this call will agree it's objectively good quality stuff. So it's worth going on that journey. I've paid a lot more for a lot worse whiskey, I tell you that. David has said, both actually David and Frank has said, going back to growing wings with a drop of water, a drop of Solera mixed in works really, really well. Sweet, several orange notes. When you say going back to growing wings with a drop of full Solera, do you mean you've actually blended the two whiskies, Frank? Because I actually thought you meant what David had, which was going back and comparing the two and getting different notes. So it'll be interesting to hear what you mean. In the meantime, I suppose we'll come on to the Cask 114 PX, the full
Yep,
flight.
yep. So this was a single cast release. Full Flight is kind of our flagship for the 7-year-old brand. So this one is sticking 7 years old. Again, we released it at cask strength, 62.7. This one has come down to in the 7 years. For me, picking up a lot of notes from the barrel. This one, I believe, was transferred into a Pedro Jimenez cask at the end. Is that correct? I'm trying to think if it was the one released. So 114. This is the Oloroso. It began as. Sorry,
Oh,
you
so
have
it's a
to.
PX finish rather than so it's Oloroso finished in a Pedro Jimenez cask.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. Oloroso, but then transferred to Pedro Jimenez cask. For just to add a bit of a decadent finish on the end there. But yeah, for
Yes,
this
I have
one,
here Gonzalez Bias Oloroso Sherry Butt. Um, Interesting. Oh, that's cool.
so a bit of a combo of the two. Very rich, for me, spice, sticky raisins, that type of thing. So I'd be interested to hear what else thinks of this. Oh, you did mix it, Frank.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
No, that is interesting. Brilliant. Well, it's no, this is really interesting on the nose as well. You don't get so this is sorry to labor the point in terms of the Oloroso, the PX. I'm not. I understand now that one's gone to other, but are they just single cask releases? So it was just one cask, the other, and that's it. It's not a marriage of different casks in that regard.
This one is
Yeah,
yeah. The transfer was an air pump transfer, so it
yeah.
still remains single cast
So it's still
release.
a single cask, yeah. And how many bottles for this one?
was at the smaller bottles, I think it ended up being 1,130.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
So it's a while ago. We've had a few releases since. And
No,
as
fair enough.
we're
It takes time to travel over here, like,
yeah, we're
it's like a
sold out of
6 month journey by sail, like.
yeah. So what you guys have, it's really interesting. So it was really fun to come back to the UK and see things that we were out of here in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's the time difference. Yeah, it's like those stories, you hear the IPAs as we drink them today. Obviously, we're not sort of how the original IPA recipe was designed. They were designed for export. This is what all the beer books say. Maybe it's apocryphal. So the higher ABV, the extra hops was designed to kind of give them extra legs so that they could make the journey down to India or Australia or New Zealand. But that journey changed the flavors of them, but naturally, just the extra time in cask, the kind of changing atmospheric pressures and time at sea. So a guy recently, I think I have the book there behind me somewhere, like literally tried to sail around the world with a barrel of this old IPA recipe. And when he popped it out in wherever he landed in Goa or something, they were like, "This isn't beer. What are you talking about?" It had transformed so much they wouldn't believe him that it was an IPA. So yeah, this is a lovely port you've got here, Isla. But no, it's interesting. It really is a good drop.
Yeah, no, I mean sherry casks. When I went to the London Whisky Show, I found that sherry casks, it's all the rage at the moment. Like all alcohols, which we saw Jim Boom recently and all the rest. Like I find flavors tend to go round and round in fashion, and
You think
sherry
sherry's
seems
going to be the next big thing in whiskey?
and people seem to love it at the moment. I'm not saying I can predict it. That's for the sales team and marketing to work out. But I did find people were really, really loving the sherry finish at the moment. Um, I think it really adds depth and body to our spirit, to our new make, and really brings through the kind of spicier notes, the kind of fruity notes that everyone's been talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, well, David's actually described it as curry spices and dark molasses on the nose, which I don't disagree with, but I think might be the first time I've heard curry spices in a whiskey tasting as in terms of a flavor profile. I've had many a curry after a whiskey tasting, but it's a no, it's a lovely dram. It does have lovely kind of dark chocolatey, or like you get those kind of dark chocolate with like chili flakes in it. I haven't had them in a while, but they were all the rage about 10 years ago. And yeah, it's got those kind of finish there. Bob says right up my street. The PX gives it that little bit extra sweetness. Hot cross bun drizzled with honey. Honey as well, hot cross bun. I totally, yeah, that's another great tasting note. In terms of these type of releases, Isla, how often do you kind of run them or release them? Is
And
it
back then it was kind of usually for special events, like we had like Dram Fest and things like that. So it was not very often for these smaller bottles, these early releases, it wasn't often. It would
Mm.
be a treat that we got. Here in New Zealand, we're moving on to single cast releases as a permanent fixture within us. Hasn't made it to the UK. We're hoping it does. So that's something to really look out for us in future, definitely. But these were very special, like and it usually coincided with an event of some kind, whether it be for Dramfest or our birthday or something like that. So these small single cast releases that we did were very, at the time, I just remember a lot of excitement surrounding them, especially because we were the team that bottled them down. So we were opening these casks and like everyone was standing around and having a wee sip from them and getting really, really excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it really is a whiskey to get excited about it. There's a lot more there's a lot to sit with this and kind of pick it apart. David says black treacle and cinnamon and curry leaves, and this is full-bodied nose of sherry with an oaky wood taste and glue, palate leather, a sherry bomb. Are we on 114 now? Yes, we are, Frank. Apologies if that was not clear. Leon says this tastes really decadent, the kind of dram accompany a cigar, although I don't smoke cigars. No, yeah, totally agree. The you mentioned there the Dram Fest. What's the Dram Fest? Is that a
So
um
with
just a local whiskey show or
based in
national?
Christ. Yeah, national for us. You know, we're a small nation. I think there's about 6 million people in New Zealand, and we're a much larger country than the UK in terms of geography and size. But an amazing following down here, like really, really, but much like there is in Scotland, just and everyone who loves whiskey, you know, everyone gets really excited about it, and it's a great little community here. And there's not many. There's a few, but there's not many single malt whiskey companies here in New Zealand, and it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. This kind of growing industry that's happening here. Everyone's very supportive of each other, very excited, and producing quite different whiskies as well. You know, in terms of geography and what they're doing. So that's really cool as well.
No, that's cool. I actually I've got some great taste notes in again because I'd be interested to hear more about that. But in terms of the other whiskey producers in New Zealand, not that you need to plug your competition, but in the meantime, Dom has said Cask 114 is quite subtle on the nose for me, giving sweet stone fruits, a touch of a croissant with raspberry jam. The mouthfeel tends to powdery, and it's quite peppery on the palate initially. The spice settles down, and sweet jammy fruits and macerated raisins come through with a touch of honey. There's also a hint of woody pencil shavings and a bit of earthiness. The finish is long, dark chocolate and chili. It's complex and highly rewarding to savor. David's another excellent tasting note, Dom. And David says, water really rounds off the shoulders. Whiskey, not mine. It does soften the ABV kick. Frank says, right, rich Christmas cake and polished leather. That's a thing. Definitely. No, yeah. Well, any thoughts on those, Isla?
Don, I'm loving your tasting notes. You got an incredible palate, an incredible nose. To be able to pick out all of those is just, I still find that amazing. Yeah, would agree, definitely, especially with the jammy fruits. Peppery finish, absolutely. Actually, the more I think about that, the more I'm kind of in agreement with that. I love with this one, with our sherry single cask when I'm at home. I actually often pair it with dark chocolate seems the obvious one, but with blue cheese and grapes. I really find
Mm.
that it's just I love matching when I'm drinking whiskey at home. I love matching food to my
Yeah.
whiskeys and the blue cheese and grapes really
I've
really.
always found, yeah, the sweeter a PX cask finish or whiskey is, whether it be the finish or full PX cask, and blue cheese, there's something about that kind of sweet and savory, that kind of salty and treacly contrast, and that really works. There's
Nice, yeah.
the Dunvilles, I think, well, the whiskies behind me there, they do a great PX cask that goes amazing with some good Cashel blue cheese or something. Andy says goes well with mince pies, and I can see that working as well. Definitely. Whiskey Slayer says has a rum flavor for me, loaded with raisins and spice. It's actually extraordinary whiskey. I think it might be maybe people, maybe this is saying too much because people can maybe give their thoughts on this either now or at the end of the chat. People who come on these tastings regularly, but it was definitely one of the better drams we've tried this year, and there has been some amazing drams. I'm not saying it's the all time because we've had some cracking tastings this year, but it would hold its own with a lot of those whiskies as well. I must say, it's kind of it's put the first two in the shadow for me. I think it's got so much going for it. There's so much there. It's really interesting dram. Um, so yeah. So in terms of what you were saying before about the Dram Fest and the other kind of producers. Well, what is the kind of nature or the makeup of the New Zealand whiskey scene? Is there a lot of producers? Are you've mentioned different styles. What kind of different whiskies are you getting from New Zealand?
I mean, yeah, not loads. There are a few, but not loads. A lot of them, not all, but quite a few are based up in North Island. And it's a huge range. It's an absolutely huge range. Many are going down the single malt route, some not so much. Adding in, experimenting with Manuka smoke, like Pocono, Matt Thompson. He's incredible. He's just kind of just doing his own thing, making really, really smoky style whiskeys, absolutely beautiful. So is a real in terms of New Zealand. There's a real support system and network, and it's kind of nice that people are producing such unique style whiskies that often represent the area that they're distilling in, you know?
Mm.
Like if they're more tropical environments, I'll find that the whiskey tends to give off those kind of notes. Here we've got our sweet alpine water, that really and beautiful flora. You know, we're surrounded by foxgloves, beautiful alpine flora, and I find our whiskey often mirrors that in terms of those flavors. And yeah, so it's a great scene to be a part of, and it's growing, really growing, which is
Mm.
exciting.
Because you mentioned yourselves and Australia have quite high excise duty on whiskey compared to a lot of countries, was it?
Yeah, that's just that's across the board with alcohol.
Mm.
You know, if
Because
you're
it's
supermarket in the UK, you'll get a Central Otago Pinot Noir for about a third of the price as you will in New Zealand.
wow, that's quite the impact. Because that's why because
Stock up on New Zealand one.
yeah, is there an excise duty on New Zealand lamb? The because we get lots of
Lamb?
yeah. I don't know. It's an ongoing. I live in a rural part of Scotland. People are always giving out about the either the propensity or lack of New Zealand lamb in an area. Um, that's a different story. So but no, but it is fascinating that that there is sort of these high excise duties kind of impacting, potentially. Maybe we don't. Maybe taxes have no impact on this kind of thing. I'm not I'm not Milton Friedman or anything here, but that are higher excise duty than maybe other countries, and yet you hear stories of like you the kind of the small but growing scene you described there. The sometimes when I see these figures online or in whiskey podcasts, whatever, discussing the volume of output or the number of distilleries in like Tasmania or something, I'm like, well, there's no way. I have to like double check them. I'm like, this how many? It's just it's insane how many how thriving the scene seems to be in kind of Oceania or whatever that part of the world is called.
We're passionate about whiskey. What can we say? They definitely are. No obstacle. All barriers shall be broken through. And for me, that was a huge selling point for me joining this company was seeing Des's passion for Desiree's passion for the whiskey and vodka as well, a huge passion for that. And hearing her speak, I think on my first interview, which I just came to just inquire about a possible job, that really cemented it for me that this is a company I wanted to work for because her pride of producing these incredibly high standard of spirits and her passion for it was just what sold me on it's like, right, I want to join that company because she really believes in what she's doing. And
Hmm.
that's important, that's hugely important. And it passed it down. We passed it down to the people that helped create that.
Yeah.
Her
No, it's definitely an energy or a belief and vision that sounds infectious. Graham, it says full flight equals full taste. So I totally agree. I could sit with this whiskey for another half an hour, but I'm conscious that we're taking up everyone's time. So we maybe come on to the
Falcon.
Falcon.
Yes,
Is it
so
Falcon or Falcon? How do people say
I
it?
say Falcon, but everyone says Falcon. I think I'm wrong.
Or it's probably, I mean, I'm Irish, so it just means I've probably Americanized it somehow.
Yeah, sure. I say Falcon, but yeah, that's everyone here says Falcon,
I
and I'm
have
trying to trick.
I live near Falkirk and I have a very or Falkirk. I have a very people yeah. I always butcher. I can never remember which one's right, and everyone always corrects me. So I'm either
I would
20
say
minutes from
Falkirk,
Falkirk or 20 minutes from Falkirk. You'd say Falkirk
yeah,
or
but I
Falkirk.
don't. Maybe that's an island thing.
Yeah,
Um,
how would you pronounce it? Sorry, I talked over you there.
yeah, so I'd say Falkirk or yeah, Falcon, but that's just.
Perfect. Marvelous. So tell us a bit about this the Falcon.
Okay, so this one particularly exciting for us. So this one is going to be the first one where I get to introduce, in a small part, our Pinot Noir. So the Falcon was, and also in larger bottles, which is great, 700 ml, your standard. It's a combination of three casks. So we've got our Oloroso sherry, we have our bourbon, but this time we also have a Pinot Noir. Now, as mentioned before, we are a Pinot Noir growing region. Primarily, we get our barrels from Felton Road, and we have had a few from Mount Difficulty as well in the past. Now, what makes that so incredible and unique is the fact that, I mean, wine aging for whiskey has been around forever, but ours, we can roll those barrels out of the winery and have new make to cask within the same day. So we don't have to pre-treat our barrels. There's no time or anything else is happening. So it's going in. Pinot Noir, instead of these deeper reds, because Pinot Noir is a lighter red, it really complements our new make. Well, I believe it does anyway. In terms of we've got that sweetness, that lightness, those honey flavors that you mentioned before. I think beautiful. So this is a combo of all three. This is the first one we've released, not at cask strength. We have proofed it down to a nice low 52% for you. So by all means, add water to bring out the oils and the aromas as well, but a little bit lower on the ABV, so we've not got as much heat. This is kind of becoming our flagship. A lot of pride has gone into this. Won gold at the World Whisky Awards. It really brings out those kind of toffee flavors.
Yeah, it's got there's something on the nose that I can't quite put my finger on. I'm sure Dom will nail it, but there's it's not quite a licorice, but it's kind of in that realm. Like those they blackjack or one of those kind of little sweets that
Oh
I
yeah.
never understood how they maintained a commercial presence. I was like, who's eating these things? But yeah, there's something like that on the nose, but it's not quite that to me adjacent. Bob has said I think it must be the New Zealand spirit taxes, and there is a free trade agreement between the two countries, and we complain about tax in the UK. Nathan said, interesting going back to the full fight Solera. That's a reference to our discussion about you saying that you can get New Zealand wine cheaper over here, obviously, for anyone who's he wasn't sure why I just burst in with that bit of information. Nathan says, interesting going back to the full flight Solera after 114. I mean, yeah, after 114 of them, going back must be like, oh. The rich fruit notes of the 114 are stunning, but I can taste fruit in the Solera, but I can't taste the fruit in the Solera anymore. Much more butterscotch and creamy. Jeff has said the wine casks has added a lot. This is now that was a reference obviously to the that was the last comment on our last whiskey. Excuse me. So now we're coming on to the one on the Falcon. The wine cask has added a lot. Lovely rose color, all spice on the nose, says Leon. Midget gem sweets on the nose. That might actually be it. I totally, yeah. They're the ones with the kind of the two different colors. I'm gonna have to Google that if I
Oh,
Bourneville chocolate and Tannins Pontefract cakes, all candied fruit for me. It's yeah, it was really interesting. Lots of sweet shop flavors in there, Isla.
yeah. It's definitely something that comes through a lot, I think, in our whiskey. And again, just from where we distill in our process and the length of our fermentation. Um, when if please come to New Zealand, come and see us, come visit us. You get to smell the fermentation. It's always, I love it. It's so fruity and vibrant, and I think our whiskey, our new make, really represents that. And then the casks Des has chosen to age them in, really balance that. I love the introduction to of the Pinot Noir here. I'm looking forward to one day introducing the UK to just a single cask Pinot Noir. I think it's an incredible thing we're producing here, and something it's quite unique to us, which is always very exciting. Not saying that Pinot Noir hasn't been aged before, but just the combination of our new make and the local Pinot Noir barrels is just a beautiful marriage there.
Hmm. No,
And then
definitely.
here's
It's got like a bit of a mead or something flavor to it as well. It's this is a really interesting whiskey. The Falcon smells like apple crumble with lashings of custard. It's creamy to drying on the palate, vanilla custard, hints of Bakewell pudding, and overripe peaches with subtle woodiness and varnished oak. The finish has some baking spice, but rather than individual flavors, it's simply a rich, bold, satisfying experience that lingers on. Lovely. Um, Nikki says, yeah, the original 70s and 80s ones, Nick, when sweets were sweets. When back in the 70s when sweets were sweets. Yeah, the I agree with Dom. LOL. Marvelous.
Oh,
Yeah,
do you
some
want to
interesting.
come?
Do you think so? Do you have any more thoughts on this whiskey or confectionery from 50 years ago? Which one would you like to take up first?
No, I would like Dom to come down and write the labels on our whiskey. It's incredible. You have amazing tasting notes there. Yeah, the sweet shops. I think it's a brilliant example, especially like I'm trying to remember where it was, somewhere on the coast near Elgin. There was like original kind of candy stores that you used to get where they were all in jars. Um, I get a lot of those coming through, and going back to what was sorry, I can't remember who said it. It was about the pear drops earlier. And they were all sweets. To me, it was reminiscent of, they were covered in powdered sugar and you had them in the tins. And honey, definitely. You mentioned beet, and I always get those honey notes coming through for sure. And then just candied fruits, absolutely nail on the head with those. You've
Yeah,
got
I
great
mean,
one.
definitely on those kind of travel sweets, candied sweets, definitely, or boiled sweets, I suppose, is what I was actually for on the first two. And then kind of very different. I mean, like maybe it's just because we were sent down that direction because taste is very suggestive. But I think it's been a while since we've done a tasting where confectionery and cakes and stuff have come up. There's Bakewell tarts and stuff we mentioned tonight, as much as they have tonight. So that's interesting as well. How much that is down to the spirit and how much is down to the shape of the stills. I don't know. Maybe in terms of your actual, maybe it's the one thing we didn't discuss in that sort of you said about your 72 was there a 76 hour fermentation. That is there in terms of the shape of your still. Is there what kind of reflux are you getting? Is there any kind of other factors that would give?
Funny, our closest kind of cousin in terms of still shape, I don't know if anyone's visited Glenfarclas Distillery.
Hmm.
So really round, and yeah, quite a bit of reflux. We've gone for the more. We wanted some of the grunchier notes to kind of come over, for sure. Um, so yeah, beautiful. I mean, they were designed for us, but does everyone know that kind of Glenfarclas is kind of like big, nice pot, with the kind of the bulbous, should I say, very very bulbous style still. I think if you go on our website, you can see you
Are
can
they the
see the
ones,
shape.
Dave? Is what's behind you? Is that Cardrona? No, or is that a different?
Uh, this is me, sorry.
No, no, I was there's sometimes as Dave Hansip's background in the call is he's going to tell us now. I can see he's typing where he is. The so yeah, no, this is I'll give them a Google. I mean, for myself, because I actually haven't looked at them back. I've been to Glenfarclas, I know what you mean. Well, it's interesting in terms of the shape of the still, because I could be totally wrong here, so don't take this for. Or Delmanoch is where he is. I did think there was probably too many of them as well, actually, and the shape descriptors. There was nothing given away there. I was totally wrong. But I could be wrong on this, but Glenfarclas is a much longer fermentation time from my memory, or maybe yeah,
This was just in terms
just
of
in terms
still
of
shape,
shape, yeah.
just to kind of get an idea of what Meg and Annie kind of. Sorry, that's our stills are called Roaring Meg and Gentle Annie, wash stills Roaring Meg, and no, it wasn't until I went back to Scotland that I realised not everyone names their stills. We have 5 stills in total, and they all have names, and I speak to them as such daily. In terms of our line arm, it's kind of leaning directly back towards the condenser itself. Um, so yeah, we've got. So if you actually, yeah, if you have access to Google, if you Google Cardona Distillery, and you'll be able to click on those stills, and you can see what a beautiful setting we've got as well. Like absolutely stunning, just nestled in. And oh, thank you, Luke. That's Meg's on the left and Annie's on the right. If you can see it in the chat. Um, yes, that's our girls. 2,000 litre copper pot still, and then 1,300 litre spirit still as Annie. And those girls get run 3 times a day.
Marvelous. So they're female stills, and you were at one point, if you know if you still are, an all female workforce as well, are you?
We were. It was never on purpose. Just happened to have a lot of women who were very passionate about alcohol around here, about whiskey in particular. So I do believe at one point, kind of marketing, they were happy to kind of show that. It was very interesting, just joining an all-female work team we had, and at one point, for a very brief amount of time, it was all women out back and all men out front. So they like to say that we did the hard graft while they did the drinking and the talking. They really very much enjoyed saying that on tours, but completely different now. We
I've
have
been, yeah, my dancing has been described as that all women at the back and all man at front, you know. In terms of my moves and the shape, yeah. The Anyway, I'm getting bourbon influence, orange peel oil, says Whiskey Flair. Waterford has just come to me, couldn't put my finger on it, and then Waterford jumped out. So interesting. I can definitely see the influence from some of those flavors you're talking about from Waterford. Definitely. Yeah, interesting. Sorry, I also cut you off there with my terrible joke on it.
oh, fine. So yeah, no, I mean, as all whiskeys, there's a lot of contributing factors to flavor points, right? Yeah, from barley, fermentation, water, still shape, barrels used, atmosphere. Like you've got so many different factors coming in
Hmm.
to create a signature flavor. And I think the Falcon really encapsulates ours. For me, it's been a real point of pride to get to this stage as well, to see whiskey getting put out in 700 litre bottles. I love 52% as an ABV, and I can't put my finger on why. I like the fact that she's not gone down to the 40s and that she's stuck with the 50s. It's a nice, accessible point for people who are maybe afraid of going for stronger whiskey, but then at the same time, we're not taking away the ABV because ABV is an incredible carrier of flavor
Hmm.
and so we can add water to our taste if we'd like. So yeah, it's been really exciting to see it progress to this stage to the Falcon. And
Yeah, no,
yeah, I can't.
I can definitely imagine. Yeah, it must have been an exciting 6 years since you joined. Marvelous. Well, we just conscious of our of what are we an hour in? So actually, we're actually doing not doing too bad for time. So ignore that. I totally misread the clock there. I don't want to. No point in rushing onto the vodka, although we probably should come on to it in a minute or two. Krista says I've been trying to bottom out the notes since you mentioned black jeans, Luke. I think there's something between licorice and aniseed with the honey mixed in. I may try and do similar blend of my honey next season. I think yeah, that's it. Black jeans or black jacks. Sorry, my God, I'm 4 whiskeys in. Like I can't read when I'm sober, so I don't know why I'm blaming on the whiskey. But yeah, no, totally. Does the Inver House still have controlling interest? If so, the likes of Annock and Balblair seem to come through in the sherry influence for me.
That's a really interesting question, Bob. In Inverhouse are Interbev is we're now known. They are, we're part of their team. Controlling interest, no. And everything that you're tasting, all of these were cast down before when it was still a small independent distillery. And so it is really interesting when I visited Balblair and Knockdhu in September. I did find a lot of similarities with our whiskey, and it was really cool to kind of see that. But in terms of how of influence on the flavors coming through here, no.
Yeah.
So
Um, sorry.
that was a good question.
No, that is an excellent question. And do you since that for anyone who doesn't know the story behind that, that's quite a recent relationship where I don't know how to describe it. They've invested into you, or they've overtaken you, or whatever you want to. I'm not sure of the exact details there. But obviously you were fully independent up until then, really.
Yeah, so as it did with many around the world, COVID hit hard. But we also, Des has these incredible visions for the future and wanted to grow and expand. And to do that, you need you need investors, you need contacts, and people who know what they're doing in the worldwide world of sales and alcohol and in spirits, should I say. alcohol. And so we went on the market a few years back looking for the right team. A lot of interest. I don't know every detail, so this is just what I know. A lot of interest was garnered, and there was a lot of thought behind who Des wanted to come in and invest and take over, like what family we wanted to be a part of, for lack of a better word. And Into Bev came along, which is a Thai beverage as well, conglomerate of Thai beverage, and she went with them, and I think it's been an amazing relationship so far. They very much have so much knowledge and experience in the industry, but don't come in, don't come at you for creative control or anything like that. Because if you think of companies like Old Pulteney, Balblair, Speyburn, Anok, and Karoon, and they're very much their own brands, and they're unique, and the people that are creating them are a huge part of that process. And I think Interbev have done a great. They created a really good family.
Hmm. No, they definitely have, and they're all that those kind of, it's like I always think, like, especially around maybe like Old Putney, Balblair, I mean Annock especially. I think are all really kind of whiskies that are kind of hit that right level where they're like underrated. They're not everywhere. They're not too in your face or whatever. They're not the ones everyone heard of. They're kind of, but they're really good quality. They're always hit that right value price point as well. They're kind of strong, reliable brands. If you're looking for someone who's getting into the whiskey, who drinks maybe Johnny Walker, has heard of Macallan, knows the Isla whiskies that you see in every bar, and they look for a recommendation. You know that they're kind of solid bets. They're A, they're probably going to like them, and B, they're not going to break their bank, and C, there's a chance they might not have had an Annock before or whatever, like, so yeah, no, I think it's a good fit for you guys. Just from my enjoyment of those brands, without knowing any of the other side of how they operate as a company, I think it's cool.
Well, as someone who's a part of the company that got to witness all that, we were very excited when we found out who was coming in. We were very excited. And I now have a lot of even more Old Pulteney and Balblair and Annock on my shelf than I used to, which is great. My household loves me because I keep bringing back these amazing
So that's actually going to be my next question. First, I've got Bob has said all niche brands. So would you say niche or niche? Either, niche,
niche.
niche. Okay, good. We can agree on that one. The in terms of that, so do you get like a staff allocation? Is it like a how does that work? Because I know some places do a kind of a monthly, a bottle a month kind of job.
We don't, but I believe Gav's on here right now. Listen. No, but we've been gifted, thankfully. But like, yeah, we get our own monthly bottles from this kind of company from Cardrona, which is great. So we get to go home. It's amazing. My popularity amongst the friendship circles of my hometown has gone up since becoming a distiller. It's very strange. People are always at my house asking for cocktails, just checking on my bar.
Yeah, well, Bob has said I'm tapping you up for a freebie, and I was actually going to say, I was going to say that the answer you've just given is exactly the answer of someone who doesn't want to give away any free bottles. The marvelous. So will we come on to the vodka now, the Reid
I
vodka?
would love
Last time we had you guys on, we started with this vodka, and it really blew people away. People were like, kind of went in being like, okay, this is the filler on the pack, to make sure we got up to four, I think four whiskeys on that tasting it was, and then they were like, no, that was actually amazing. So yeah, but I'm excited to try it again because I haven't had it since. But yeah, do you want to tell
So
us a
this
bit
is
about this?
very I love it. So it's a bit, yeah, it's a bit strange. I used to do the tastings of the vodka first. I'm actually trying something new because I think um I really enjoy it after a whiskey as well. Um so the Reed single malt vodka, something incredibly rare, right? You don't hear of a single malt vodka coming around very often. Please have a nose of this. It's not going to smell or taste like pretty much any vodka you've had in the past. Nick kind of hit the nail on the head again. Pear drops. A lot of people get pear drops off of this, or a kind of banoffee style. When you drink it, It's beautiful, smooth, rich. One of the few vodkas I've ever been able to just drink straight. So
Um, marvelous. So
I
what
just
was this? Sorry, while people, oh, my apologies. No, you go on.
no, yeah, it it always amazes me the feedback that we get off it, and I am incredibly proud of our whiskey and I love it. But there's just something to me so special about our vodka, and most people, a vodka is it's all about the having no taste. But for me, like making a vodka martini with one of these and pairing it with some oysters or something like that, like that, that's a spring day complete for me.
Um, yeah, it's no, it's really interesting. It does have extraordinary nose. It's almost like I don't. I'm sure maybe this is actually there's some great comments in there, so I don't want to jump ahead of the things. I mean, my first question would be, what makes it a vodka?
Okay, so follow vodka. The law, one of the few, I mean, vodka does have legal requirements, but one of the main one is it must be distilled to over 95. In certain parts of the world, it's 96%, but for us, it's 95% ABV before you proof it back down with water. Kind of leading on to the question Dom asked, what differentiates it from the new make spirit? Distillation style. So same fermentation. We use the same fermentation, 72 hours, all those future flavors, but instead of sending it to our pot stills to be turned into new make spirit, it is sent through. We have two column stills. Actually, it's not a true continuous system. We have one giant column still. His name is Jacob. And the our Carl, who's our finishing column still, is more like a pot with a giant column attached. So it's not a true continuous system that you see in certain vodkas where it's three distillations whereby we're feeding one into the
Can
next into
I?
the
Sorry
next.
to interrupt. So the pot stills are named after women, and the column stills are named after men. Is that a
Yes,
bit
so
on the nose?
the pot stills are named after two lovely ladies that worked out of the Cardrona Hotel. It's a very famous hotel just around the corner. Uh, During the gold rush era, I'm sure you can use your imagination to guess their profession. But they're very famous and they've had a lot of things named after them around Miss Valley. The column stills were named after Mr. Jacob and Mr. Carl, who were the inventors of this particular column still.
Okay, sorry. That's fascinating. I was actually making a crass joke about the shape of a column still, and you've given really interesting history. So sorry, you were saying about how these shapes influence the flavor for in terms of Dom's question.
Oh no, so yeah, so it's column distillation. So if you think of it more about, we're just removing more of the flavor, but we're really honing it. So we actually turn the reflux off. For those who know about column distillation, we turn it off in Jacob altogether, allowing a lot of these fusel oils to come over that normally people would trap and hold into the still or remove via a fusel oil decanter. We hold them in. So we allow these beautiful flavors to come up and over. If you come over and you smell our fermentation, I often get those banoffee notes in the fermentation themselves, and we've just honed in on it in our vodka, basically. Yeah. So in terms of what differentiates the new make versus the vodka, it's just the removal of more flavors. So the pot stills allow more flavors to come over and lack of aging, I guess, would be the
Yeah,
main
no,
one.
it's really,
Fermentation.
fermentation is the same, and obviously, yeah, so single malts and the mash bill and everything's the same. It's fascinating. There's a couple of questions that have come in both directly to me and in the chat about the fact that this isn't currently in stock. When this tasting went on sale, I'm pretty sure it was. I will chase up as to why it isn't, and whenever it comes back in stock, even if it's outside of the period that this discount is valid for, I'll make sure that it's still included as well. So yeah, apologies about that, folks. The nose of bubble gum, says Andy. Does the difference taste come through with a mixer? That's actually an interesting question. Like gentle new make spirit, 100% pear drops, egg custard. So there's some interesting. Nick has suggested where the two women in the postils named after whiskey distillers. So there's some really great taste notes in there. I bought a tumbler rather than nosing glass, thinking vodka, but pear dropped straight away. I suppose that's what was Alistair's comment from a few minutes ago, and I think that really sums up why I was asking. Because to me, vodka. It's almost, I think I mean, I don't know, maybe technically this is a vodka, but it's one of the most interesting, complex things I've tried. It's more like an eau de vie, or there's kind of these other maybe like a really sort of subtle poutine. So I think kind of maybe almost maybe because of the connotations, maybe that's sort of a Eastern Europe phobia or something for me, or Scandinavia, where vodka originates from. But it's yeah, it's a really interesting dram. In terms of the Bob's question about mixer, I suppose there's A, does the taste come through, and what's your recommended go-to with this, Isla?
Great question. We over ice. I know. I drink it mainly in vodka martinis and Vespers. That's my
Oh, I
main
can
thing.
imagine a good in a martini, yeah.
Yeah, it does add to an espresso martini. I've never been one to add sugar syrup to my espresso martinis anyway, and I tend to actually go with like not Kahlua, it was some kind of deeper, darker style coffee liqueurs. So the sweetness of this can help add to that and the texture of the actual espresso martini. But again, I'm mainly stick to drinking this straight. Soda is a really good one if you just want to take down that ABV, if you want something a bit more refreshing, even with a bit of lime in it as well. Yeah. So but I mean, I, I love a Vespa, so I drink it a lot with Vespa in it.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it being great at Vespa. There was Andy, I think we kind of half answered this, but grains are used in this vodka. You said it's the same mash bill, like exactly as the whiskey. They're the same,
Yes, sorry,
everything.
100% malted barley,
Mhm.
exact same match.
And from the
Yeah,
same from the name of the farm. I don't say it to me because I know it, or the area. Um, Never mind. You're gonna have to say it to me.
and
Canterbury. Yes, there we go. I'm terrible. That's Sky. I was thinking, when you said it earlier on, I was like, I'm never going to forget this because I'm going to associate it with Jeffrey Chaucer. And then here we are. There we go. Uh, Gavin says, never been a fan of vodka, but this is stunning and this is great. Thanks. Leon says we get more stock in, really delicious. I will definitely try. I'm not the one that with shop who orders the stock, but I will 100%. If there's a feeling there's demand for it there, it will definitely be in. As I say, I'm surprised it is out of stock. Alice says maybe I'm a heathen. Just added 50/50 with Fever Tree tonic for the second half. That really hits the spot for me. So I suppose of all the tonics you could add, Fever Tree is not a bad one. It's a high quality tonic. So yeah. Any thoughts on what the kind of people's opinions on the vodka? Do people normally act this surprised, or are we just whiskey snobs?
no, people always act this. But everyone's got a not everyone, sorry, that's generalization, but a lot of people have a preconception on vodka. It's often a drink that people kind of maybe ruin themselves on in the earlier phases of drinking. So there's always a wariness towards vodka, I find in shows and things. And I love having the pleasure of seeing them change their minds. And something that definitely noticed at the London Whisky show was people coming up and saying, like, I don't drink vodka. I don't want to try it. And I'll be like, just smell it. And without 100% of the time, every single time, they would go from smelling it to tasting it. And it is a great spirit. And I'm really, really proud. And Desiree, when I first started, her passion towards vodka confused me until I tried it. And I was just like, I'm blown away. I'm sold. It's the best vodka I've ever tried in my life. And yeah, I drink probably a bit too much of it at home, but I say I enjoy this.
I've never had something like a Grey Goose. Because I've never wondered what's the point is. How does it compare to some of the premium vodkas on the market? Like as someone who's genuine, I've genuinely never drank one of them.
So how do you mean in terms
I don't mean I
of
don't mean like necessarily that brand Grey Goose, but I mean people pay. I know there's people out there who pay a lot of money for vodkas, and I've never seen the appeal. But drinking something this good would make me wonder: are there vodkas out there that are good? How do you, in terms of vodkas, how does this compare? Like, is there other vodkas like this? I'm not asking you to name drop another brand. You can even be vague about it. There's a vodka from I don't know, like Morocco that's good, but how?
I went to university in Edinburgh. And there's, I don't know if anyone's been to Edinburgh, there's a hidden Russian vodka bar, just kind of off of the Royal Mile. And it was there that taught me, and they were small brand vodkas that were coming, mainly out of Russia and Eastern Europe. And I tried some amazing ones there. Like, it's, for me, it was never a drink I turned my nose up at, because I got the privilege of trying some great ones. And for some people, a vodka, they can be very purist on it and, want absolutely no flavor. And that's when you get the ones that, are up to 5 times distilled. And that's what you're doing, is you're removing absolutely everything. And that's what they want. And that's not a bad thing, but we're here to kind of break the mold on I think the Reid is here to kind of break the mold on what a vodka can be.
Mm.
And we've done it in our own unique way.
Oh,
So
fair enough. I mean, I don't think is that bar still exist, or is
it
um
does. I could not tell you the name of it. We stumbled into it in my early 20s. Someone might know, but it was one of the side streets that came off the Royal Mile, and it just had a sign that said bar, and it pointed and it took you upstairs into a hidden Russian vodka
interesting?
bar.
I was in
And
Edinburgh last weekend. I'll try and find it because the Russian vodka is very hard to get now since the invasion of Ukraine, unfortunately. But the we'll definitely keep an eye out. And when I say I wasn't when I was talking about the vodka, the reason I haven't drank much vodka isn't because I think it's beneath me. It's because I'm very tight and sorry, I need to be convinced before I open my wallet. David says Chase is super vodka, but this is way better. Super creamy and weighty. Can't decide if I'm calling this vodka or Vodski. But I'm definitely, or Vodski, I suppose, like, yeah. But I'm definitely getting some. Brilliant, Nick. Thank you. Secret Arcade Blue sorry, Secret Arcade Vodka Bar. Would that be it, the name of it?
might be. I mean, it's nearly 15 years ago now, so I can't, I can't remember the name of it. I just remember I had a really good time and I learned a lot about vodka there.
Marvelous. Well, Whiskey Slayer says, love the vodka, also the tequila. Now, due to this tequila, we did a tequila tasting recently. Now, due to these tastings, never drunk either, straight before. Learning every time on here. So, thank you for that, Whiskey Slayer. That was stunning. Need a bottle for our Christmas dinner. But Alistair, I'll see what we can do. I'll talk to my colleagues first thing in the morning. His
I'm
island
pretty
mate.
sure.
Gavin's on this call, so I'm sure you could, Gavin, if you ring Neil in the morning and say, "There's a demand for the vodka. You need to take a case on it." He says, "I'm on it." Brilliant, marvelous. Well, I suppose that's. I'm not saying this is the end, but I suppose that's the end of our dramming experience, or what would you call a vodka or sipping experience? I suppose if we're being non-discriminatory. Um, this is the normally point in the night, Isla, where people tell us what their preferences are. So do let us know in the chat which one you prefer. I think it's going to be a really interesting one tonight because I think they were all really, really good, like genuinely. Um, but I think it's the between the Falcon and the single cask, the PX finish, the 114. It's gonna be tight, I'd say, but maybe people will surprise me. So do let us know, folks, what one your favorite was. I've put actually already for some eagle-eyed viewers might have caught it. The discount code 15% off is WS24CNZ, so Cardrona, New Zealand. So if that will give you 15% off all the whiskies and vodka, everything. Well, I mean, the vodka's out of stock, but whenever it comes back in, everything we've tried tonight. So do let us know. Is there anything before we start digesting these results that you want to share with us, Isla, in terms of Cardrona's story, in terms of anything else?
I mean, it's just exciting to be part of this at this point. As I say, thank you all for your patience. This is my first ever digital drams tasting of any kind, so this is exciting. Uh, Worked really hard to get my laptop up to speed because I don't think it's been opened in about 4 months. But yeah, first of all, thank you for your wonderful tasting notes. It's been really, really interesting. Every time we do, I end up at one of these tastings because my area of expertise is running big machines. A lot of the time, I don't actually get the opportunity to sit down with people and get their feedback, and it's all been really, really lovely, really, really lovely. I'm really excited for what's to come. So if you ever end up at these whiskey shows across the UK and you see one of our team there, please go and say hi. And we hope to get more and more to you as we grow ourselves. And please come if you're ever in New Zealand, come and say hi and phone up in advance and say you've been on one of these digital jams experience. And not that we're not going to look after you anyway, but we'll make sure to get, if I can come out and see you, I'll happily do so as well. I always like coming and meeting people from all over the world. That's always fun. It gets me out of the dark rooms in the back.
Dude, definitely. How
So
far are you from where the Shire was filmed or whatever?
we're not in Hobbiton. I'm very close to, if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, in the second movie where Aragorn fell off the rock, and that's just around the corner.
I don't
So
remember
when
that
they're
scene actually.
getting chased by the big wolves, the Ward Riders as they're called. I'm a geek, so I know that film inside out. Um, so we're quite the, as I say, we're the rugged environment, or the big snowy hills as they're going over the pass. That's us.
The Yeah, not the Misty Mountains, the other one. Yeah. I
Yeah.
I used to know all this stuff. Uh,
um,
Casa Doom is where they end up, but what's the name of the mountain range? Um, can't
remember.
remember. Anyway, no,
Um,
it's yeah, it must be huge for, as you mentioned, the small population in the country. It must be. I know it's a bit of a cliche to be talking about. Well, David says, "Oh my God, whiskey and Lord of the Rings." I am excited to see this new this Rohirrim film, the anime version of Lord of the Rings. It's out like today or tomorrow. So that's exciting. So if you're Lord of the Rings and you're going to see that, let me know if it's worth seeing, but no spoilers. But the Yeah, it must be huge for New Zealand in terms of I'm sure people are sick of the association. It's like being from Ireland and talk about leprechauns, but it must be massive for driving tourism and stuff every year, is it?
it still is, and it was for me. It's very 50-50 split for Kiwis, whether they enjoy talking about it or not, and it entirely depends on whether they themselves were fans of the movies or they weren't, or they're
When
not
you
into
when
that.
you say it was for me, are you saying that you work for Cardrona basically because you wanted to visit New Zealand because you enjoyed the film so much?
When
Is
I
it
was 11, the first film came out. I remember sitting in the cinema and was like, I'm going there. So New Zealand was largely driven by Lord of the Rings for me to come here. Lord of the
right?
Rings and skiing, and then fell in love and never left. So just making whiskey in Middle Earth right now and enjoying absolutely every moment of it.
Brilliant. I love it. It does sound like you're living the dream. And I mean that very sincerely. The Nick says, so just in terms of the winner here tonight, I think it's the 114 is the kind of the winner for me in terms of straw polling it, in terms of quickly going through. There a lot of people did like the Falcon, but I think the PX cask finish wins it. But the Reid has actually scored higher for a couple of people than the two Solera casks. Although I think none of them were bad. So interesting. Any thoughts on what people have kind of picked as their preference? There's also some great comments coming in about how good you were as well, Isla. So yeah, I would like to also endorse those sentiments.
I'm trying to go through and like them all right now because it's very, very thank you very much, everyone. Um, no, I always knew. So the 114, it's great to see that coming through, and then hopefully, as time goes on and we start releasing our single casts to the wide world and in bigger bottles, and that's a really cool thing to know that people love those kind of individual expressions with the sherry cast coming through. Really, really good feedback. The Falcon, I always love seeing where the Reid is gonna place in terms of this, especially for whiskey clubs, because I'm the same. I huge whiskey fan that's been open to the wide world of spirits of artisan spirits through this job, which has been great. So it's always nice to see when people get really excited about a spirit they weren't necessarily thinking they were going to try or anything like that. So it's all beautiful, beautiful feedback and loving the tasting notes from everyone. Thank you. Special mention to Dom. So if he ever wants to write some of our our labels, that would be great because you've got a nose on you. That's incredible. But yeah, just thank you very much for this opportunity. So
Um,
cool.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, no, it's been really great to have you on. Mrs. Clare says with a name called Isla, she has to be great with whiskey.
My
Marvelous.
father knew what he was doing. He
Yeah.
did.
Friends of ours have just had a baby called Isla, and when I was like, "Oh, she must love whiskey," they were like, "She's 6 months old, man, calm down." So yeah, that joke doesn't always go down, but I think it was an apt one to use with you. Whiskey Slayer says, "Whiskey a day keeps the doctor away," or something like that. So marvelous. Well, thank you, and Dom's also got some great comments in there as well. Isla, it's been really an absolute pleasure having you on. Hopefully, we'll have you on again for Cardrona 3, the return of the Cardrona. And yeah,
We'll call it that for sure.
it's been yeah, it's been really really good tasting. I think it's great to. I think the brand surprised a lot of people who were on the previous one 2 years ago in terms of the good quality. And I think for people who were joining for the first time as well, who didn't know it, will have also equally experienced that. And for people like me who are returning to it, and I know the few others who mentioned it in the past, who mentioned already in the chat that they ran the last one as well, it's just reinforced that it's yeah, it's a serious whiskey. And hopefully, as you say, with your new relationship in terms of the with Inver House, that it yeah, we'll see a lot more of you and different releases and everything. So it's an exciting time. So you can say, folks, when all your pals get into controller, you can say them. You heard them here on the Digital Drams first. So brilliant. Thank you, Isla. It's been a great night.
A genuine pleasure, guys.
Cheers. We'll see you later, folks. Bye.